Welcome to Tea with C&C.
Today our tea is a vanilla tea. Ooh, the sun came right on me.
Okay, son.
A vanilla tea. Vanilla tea actually can be like really invigorating, can help you stay present, but it can also help with gas. It can also help with blood clots. It's also said to help with anxiety, to reduce anxiety. So yeah, cheers, my love.
Cheers.
Some vanilla tea. It smells so good.
I love vanilla. I love vanilla tea. I love vanilla scented products. Like I love vanilla candles. Like vanilla's my vibe.
I love vanilla too. Vanilla, just like the smell of vanilla is very romantic to me. And speaking of romance, let's talk about sex, baby.
Let's talk about you and me.
People already think we're gay. We don't need to say that.
For the record, we're not gay.
The way. Well, sorry, we are not. I am. Candace, leave Candace out of this. Poor thing.
We've just been friends forever, so that's why we have such a close connection. But a lot of people have been asking if we're together.
Like too many people, like an excessive amount of people have been asking.
Yes, we're not together. We've never been together.
No,
we've always
not in
been
this
friends.
lifetime anyway. We're definitely soul family though.
Yes, we are.
But yeah, so talking about sex, what was your first experience with like having a conversation or like having an introduction to sex?
Honestly, movies.
Yeah.
I guess movies, right? Movies. Having an older brother that started talking about sex and having sex before me. That was probably my first experience.
Like talking about it just like in the house?
Yeah, like my brother like talking with his friends about sex and girls and like bringing girls over. That was probably like one of my first experiences, like especially like we had cousins and godbrothers who would come over for parties, and they were a little bit older, so they started introducing my brother to sex and like porn and things like that, and like me being around, I would just overhear or like see certain things, right? So that was my first experience, even like talking about sex, really.
Yeah.
Like I don't recall my parents ever be sitting me down and being like, hey, you know, this is how this works, Candace, or anything like that. Yeah,
I think that mine was probably pornography too. Like when I was like in grade 3, this is like so old school, just to show how old I am, that we found a stack of magazines in my friend's dad's garage. Like he had like a section of the garage where he like, it was like his man cave, and they found like a stack of like porn magazines. And we were
back in the day, Playboy Bunny.
Yeah, prior to people just like going online, there was like, people would just like get magazines or calendars or whatever, and there'd be like calendar girls, and that was our first time. And I think it was like so crazy because it was like grown women, and I remember being like a young girl being like, oh, is my body supposed to like look like that?
Yeah.
And they were like perfect and like beautiful, and that was like my first introduction. And then I think that as I got older, because I also had older siblings, they started having like boyfriends and kissing and stuff like that. But my older sister and my mom actually did sit me down and have like a little talk with me. It was more, but I think that sex was always focused around, at least in my house, like how babies are made. It was never like, oh, like two people in love, this is what they do, like this is how
people connect.
Right. There was never that.
True. And the thing too is like, I think sometimes adults don't know how to discuss sex because it's still like, there's still stigmas around it. As humans that think we're so evolved, we like avoid the conversations, even though it's like it's a natural part of life. Like it's how we come to be. And secondly, it's like a lot of people find pleasure in sex. It's not even just about having babies. It's like I think parents need to start having conversations about pleasure.
100%, because I think that there's so much shame around feeling pleasure.
Yeah.
And it's to the point where especially with like young women, there is so much shame around it that like the amount of women I met growing up that were like, oh, even to this day, that are like, oh, I've never had an orgasm.
Yeah.
It's like, that's how common it is. We both have heard it amongst friends, and it's just like, it seems so strange. Like,
Yeah.
how have you never experienced pleasure, but you've been having sex like for years? Like, that's sad to
Or you've
me.
never climaxed.
Yeah, like, I feel like you just, because you're feeling so much shame, and I think that a big thing too that's not talked about is like self-exploration.
True.
Like, I was talking to a friend who's actually married to a child psychologist, and they were saying that like children as young as like 5 will start exploring their own bodies. And I think a lot, there could be a lot of prevention around maybe like children having those interactions way too young and early on if parents spoke more about like exploring your own body instead of just like going out and exploring each other's bodies, and making it more about like it's an experience of pleasure but also about intimacy.
Yes, I agree. And yeah, it's true. Like, well, children are just curious. Like, they start touching themselves.
Yeah.
Like, boys, I know, like, I have a son, so boys will, and I've seen it in multiple boy children that I've been around, they'll just start touching their ding-a-ling and be like rubbing it. Yeah, sorry, their ding-a-ling, their penis. Sorry, I call it ding-a-ling in our culture. Like, there's a whole song too, like there's ding-a-ling-ling, and there's my ding-a-ling, my ding-a-ling. Like, anyways, so point is penis. Little boys will start touching their penis but like, I feel for them, they actually see it. Like, the word ding-a-ling is so funny, but that's probably how they view it. Like, it's a little thing that's just like, you know,
an external thing.
Yeah, that's like flopping or like sticking out. Yeah. Like, what is that, you know?
And you're just curious about like how your body's different from your parents' bodies too, from your siblings' bodies.
Yes.
And I think that something that like I know you talk with your son about, and like we talk about way more now than it was ever talked about when I was in school, is like consent. And not just like consent in terms of, now it's talked about like in terms of like your child shouldn't have to hug somebody if they don't want to.
Yes.
Whereas like when we were growing up, that was like a huge sign of disrespect.
Parents would force you, like, give them a hug, give them a kiss on the cheek. And it's like, if you were,
and if you person would just come kiss you on the lips, kiss you on your mouth, and you'd be like, oh, if you were a kid, but you would just deal with it because it was just rude to not accept physical touch. But that builds a thing in your mind where you're like, oh, it's being polite.
Say no. Yeah, you can't say no to certain things. You know, you have to please this person, which is not healthy, you know? But yeah, it's true. And honestly, it's interesting. Self-exploration is interesting for me because, like, I've never been a person that likes to do that a lot, though. Like, I shouldn't say that, but more so, like, fingering myself or, like, stimulating myself in that way. Not necessarily. Like, I'm more so, like, I'll touch on myself in the shower or, like, dancing. I like dancing is how I connect with myself. But to be honest, I'm not a big, like, self-pleaser when it comes to like sexuality. Like, here and there, I'm not gonna lie, like I have
I just feel like I can get the job done.
I have a toy. I have a toy. I do have a toy, but I don't even use it really often. Like, it's once in a blue moon, to be honest.
Yeah, I feel like it's
everyone's different. Everyone's different. You just have to like be real with yourself and like connect with yourself and like figure out what works for you.
But I also think that like when you don't know what you like, you a lot of people go into sex thinking it's like the other person's job. Like I find, like especially in heterosexual couples, that a lot of women will talk about sex as if it's like this gift that they're giving to men, and that like it's almost like a duty, a responsibility, like when they're in a long-term relationship. And a lot of men think that it's like their job to like pleasure the woman, and it's like, no, it's like both of your guys' jobs.
Yeah, I was just about to say, I'm like, both, like, it's a gift for both of us. we're gifting each other. We're gifting each other. It's true. And I also sometimes feel like women or society can sometimes make it seem like it's a responsibility instead of a desire for women.
Yes.
Like, I personally enjoy sex with the right person.
Everybody does.
With the right person.
Yeah.
And you know what I mean? And like, when I'm fully engaged, like, I know how to enjoy myself. So it's strange to me where people will be like, they'll use sex as a tool sometimes, where it's like, oh, I'll take it away if you're not doing what I want, or I'll give it to you, or I'll use it for, you know, it's strange to me. So I'm like, okay, so aren't you like suffering yourself? Like, aren't you like holding yourself hostage, or like also sacrificing, you know what I mean?
But some people aren't like that. Like,
yes,
I've been in relationships where, like, for me, if there's like an argument, I feel like sex is part of my intimacy. Like, it's part of like falling asleep next to each other, holding hands, kissing, sex. It's like I feel closer to that person after I do it. And a girlfriend of mine, her and I were talking about how, like, sometimes you have to like rally, and what we mean by that is, like, sometimes you have to get yourself in the mood.
Yes.
In order to feel that closeness to your partner. Because I've been in relationships where it's like, oh, there's been an argument and now they don't want to sleep together, or now they don't want to have sex.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, well, this is gonna last a while, like, because there's like, we're turning away from each other.
Yes.
We're pulling away from each other more and more and more, as opposed to being like, you know what,
Let's be intentional.
yeah, let's be intentional. And that's the thing about sex, is I wish that young people were more aware that if you do it intentionally, there's a lot more pleasure and benefits involved than if you just have it for the sake of having it.
Look, listen, when I first started having sex, which was like grade 9, grade 10,
Same.
it was not enjoyable. Like, it wasn't enjoyable for me at that time.
It was painful.
The first experience was very painful. It took several attempts for me to even, you know, receive, okay, the full thing. But honestly, it was painful at first. We didn't know what we're doing as teenagers. It's crazy.
No, teenagers don't know what you're doing.
Had no clue what I was doing. We don't even know how to really pleasure each other. We're timid, we're shy, we're insecure. I'm insecure. I'm a teenager. I'm still learning my body. I'm still even accepting my body. I didn't like my arms at the time. I felt they were too skinny. Certain parts of your body you might not accept as yet when you're young. You're still building confidence. You're still figuring out who you are. So there's so many parts to it, right? And it's like, at that time, I did not know what true pleasure was in sex.
Oh my gosh.
Like, I did not know.
I don't think I knew what true pleasure was until I was like with a woman. Everything else, like, for me was like performative. I was like, are you having a good time? You are? Am I getting an A++? Great. I love validation. But after like when I was with my first girlfriend, I was like, wait, what? Like, first of all, foreplay was never a thing. Like, I didn't even realize, like, I felt like sex was so rushed, always. And then it was over, and I was just kind of like, okay, yeah, like, that was a cool experience, but it's kind of like, yeah, like, if you go to like a club versus like getting to go on vacation, it's like, you know, it's like, do you want an hour of like high adrenaline and then like you go home and like you have a lot of regrets and a hangover, or do you want like a nice long week vacation? And like, that's sex with foreplay. Like, foreplay is like that build up of like, I don't want to rush, like, let's take a moment and like explore each other.
Yes. And have enjoyment. And yeah, like you said, not rush, like, be patient. And it's not just about the end, the climax, the outcome.
Yeah, it's like the whole thing.
It's the journey. It's like a play. It's like a play. Like, I feel like it's like the foreplay's the beginning. Then you get to the middle. You know what I mean? The climax is the end. Yeah. And then sometimes there could be some more. You know what I mean? But I just feel like sex could be like a play. That's how I see it. It's like, but
there could be many acts.
There could be many acts, many experiences.
But I think, like, in terms of like discovering your sexuality, I also think that that's another thing. Like, when you're young, you just are put into this, maybe not as much anymore, but when we were young, like, you were put into like a category. It's like you know what you're supposed to like, so you just automatically are like, okay, I'm supposed to like men. I think now people are much more open with like sexuality being very fluid, and you can like a person and build intimacy through, you know, engaging in conversation, and not, it's not just like about physical attraction.
Yes, there's much more to that, to it, you know what I mean? Like, some people are mentally stimulated, and that causes them to want to have sex with someone.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, sometimes it's romance, sometimes it's intimacy, sometimes it's just servitude.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's servitude, you know? So, honestly, it's like, but I think the most important part and the most healthy part about exploring yourself sexually is just appreciation for yourself, appreciation for your body, and allowing yourself to be open to pleasure and connection. You know?
If you don't feel close enough to ask certain questions to people, like about their sexual health, or if they have other partners right now, or whatever it is that is going to make you feel comfortable, do not have sex with that person. Like, that is my number one rule. Like, if I don't feel comfortable having a conversation with you about sex,
you probably shouldn't be having sex.
How did you I'm just curious, because obviously, like, you're straight and you date men, and that was also what we were like taught when we were younger. Mm-hmm. Was there a point in time where you felt like you explored your sexuality, or was it just like you're just like, this is what I'm into?
Kind of. Like, I guess the idea was sparked from a boyfriend that I was with at the time. Mm-hmm. And he was a very open person. He was a very open person, I'll say. So I started like opening my mind to the idea of like threesomes and, you know, exploring women. So I did like have interactions with women where, like, you know, a few women, like kissing, touching. It never went all the way to more, but like, it was like a threesome interaction. I've had a few threesome interactions with women where I've interacted with women. Like, I've never gone down on a woman, but, you know, touching, kissing, being playful, like connecting in that way. But I would say, like, after having those experiences, like, or even during those experiences, it really confirmed and validated to me that I'm not attracted to women sexually. Because I didn't feel anything at all.
That's how I feel like kind of like after I got divorced, when I like had dated briefly like two guys at different times, and that's when it really like confirmed for me, like, it wasn't even like super like hyper sexual, but it was just like the intimacy part was just so different. And I think that it's like scary for a lot of women that are trying to like discover or explore, because sometimes they do it at like an older age, and it can feel like, oh well, I don't want to use this this person or woman to figure out if I'm straight or gay. And I think that that's why, as much as I think it's important that we can be confident in identifying our sexuality, I think there's a certain level of like openness that we all have to have. Like, don't just like be open-minded theoretically, like actually be willing to open your mind and change your mind. And I don't mean that in the sense of like you're gonna wake up and change your sexuality, just in the sense of like, if you know who you are, be open to having experiences with people who are still discovering who they are. It doesn't mean that they're like less of a person or less gay or less bisexual or whatever it is. They could just have a connection with you directly.
Or if you do even know your sexuality already, it's like, look for experiences that you can thrive in. You know, like people that make you feel comfortable, make you feel safe, you know, who you can really uncover yourself with, because there's like the standard sex, you know what I mean, missionary position and all these things, but it's like there's so much more to sex, and like everybody's different, everybody likes different things, everybody has different boundaries, You know what I mean? Everyone has different kinks. So it's like, you will only know by trying new things sometimes. Like, to be honest. And it's like, if you're a person that's just like, nope, then that's up to you. But there is definitely like a whole other world of pleasure. you know?
Like there was this docu-series, I don't know if you saw it, like on Goop. It was like Gwyneth Paltrow's brand, but basically she did this docu-series about sex because she was saying she doesn't feel like people talk about sex enough. And it was even talking about like energetic intimacy, like not even touching your partner, but like putting your hands where they're and there's so many different levels of intimacy you can explore.
Yes, there's if you look into tantric sex, you know what I mean? There's so many different, I've like tried, like there's like touching turns some people on, you know what I mean? Like using feathers, using different tools, you know, like everybody's different. Ice, heat is another one, you know what I mean? So it's like, you wouldn't know unless you try these things, you know. But of course, like, meet or connect with someone that you're safe with. we're not saying like go out there and just start having sex with people or like engaging in behaviors.
No, I think we're saying the exact opposite, where like when you are with someone, how you can go even deeper with your connection before even feeling like you have to just jump into things. I think that slow burn can bring the whole dynamic to another level.
And also it's like you know, there's a whole process aside from that. Like sometimes trauma can keep us back from opening up sexually. Shame is another one. You know, I feel like as women we're taught very early on, it's implanted in us that like, oh, you're supposed to be this pure version, you're supposed to carry on a certain image, you're supposed to come off innocent. So sometimes women carry this on through all their years into adulthood, and they also they don't even want to try new things in front of their partner or with their partner because they're scared of being judged.
And like sometimes your partner will even put you in that pocket. In that box. People will be like attracted to someone, and then it becomes like their wife, or it becomes like the father of their kids, and they are like, okay, no, now you have to be this like this you know, Virgin Mary. And it's like, no, that's you have to grow with your partner, and your partner's likes could change too, and like that intimacy can be built over time. But that's another thing, like sex drive can be such a
sex drive. And if you and your partner have different sex drives,
it's hard. That has never gone well in any relationship I've been in. Like if you have like a really, but that's a hard thing too, because a lot of times it is your mental health that can impact that. Like if someone's going through a depression,
mental, physical health, because how you're eating weight, as well, hormones. There's a lot.
Also, a lot of people I know like stopped watching porn completely because they were like more interested in just like sex became that fast, quick thing.
And it's like obsession and domination.
And that's so unrealistic to watch. Like that's another thing that like freaks me out, is like the over sexualization of everything now. And then the underdevelopment of like emotional and intellectual intimacy. Like real intimacy.
And that's the part, like when you were talking earlier about like if you and your partner aren't getting along well, or like, and it's kind of like, but that's different from like, I feel like that's different from intentionally being like, I'm using sex as a tool so that you do what I want, or you don't do what I want, or I'm mad at you. I feel like if you personally inside just are not in a place where you want to have sex, that's your right. You know what I mean?
Always.
Like that's your right. Or if like something's off with you health wise, etc., that's your right. You know what I mean? However, obviously in like a relationship, you and your partners have to discuss like what is enough sex for you two. What's enough sex? And also like, how do we get to a place where if we're upset with each other, we can remedy this or reconcile so that we do have a healthy sex life, and we're not just like, oh, for months like we're mad at each other so we're not having sex, if it's important in that relationship, you know?
And I think like one of the best pieces of advice is to have sex when you and your partner both feel sexy.
Mm-hmm.
And feeling sexy can mean a lot of different things. Like, if you're doing housework all day and your partner gets home and they want to have sex, you probably don't feel very sexy in that moment.
Yeah.
But if you're doing housework all day and your partner comes home and they run you a bath, and while you're going to have a bubble bath, they go and make some chocolate strawberries and light some candles, all of a sudden you're going to feel kind of sexy again.
Yes.
And everybody's different, but discovering what makes you feel sexy can also help you communicate to your partner, this is what you need to do to turn me on.
Exactly. Sometimes it's a night out, putting on something that makes you feel sexy, a night out, and after you come home, you guys get to it. You know what I mean? Because, like, especially if, like, if you guys are parents or anything like that, sometimes you might get into this, like, regular scheduling or, like, a rut, because it's like, okay, we deal with the kids, and, like, no space is created for intimacy and sex, right? It just becomes all about the children. But it's like, that intentionality is important all the time. You know what I mean? Where it's like, we're gonna intentionally make time and create space so that we can get sexy and connect and have intimacy together.
Like, the big thing that makes me, like, some people are easy. Like, I had an ex that was like, if you give me a massage, and I was like,
on it.
But, like, for me, it's a longer thing. Like, it's like how you treated me throughout the day will determine how I feel at night.
Yes.
And so it's not like a quick fix. It's like, you have to watch how you're speaking to me all day.
Yeah.
And if you're flirting with me all day and you're complimenting me all day, then I'm like, oh,
excited.
Yeah. And I'm like feeling myself and I'm feeling good.
Yeah.
But again, that's very intentional. You have to be intentional with your words. You have to, compliment your partner and speak affirmations and life into your partner. And also, like, a big part for me is, like, knowing that I can have intimacy with my partner without them asking for sex. Because if every time you come to, like, cuddle with me, or every time you want to go on a date night, I know it's because, or, like, you do a chore, it's because, like, you want this little reward.
Yeah.
Then it starts to feel like, like a treat that I'm giving you. Yeah. When I want it to feel like an exploration and an intimacy together.
Yeah. Or it could start feeling burdensome.
Yeah.
Like, nobody wants to feel like, oh, I have to do this task. Like, like it's work. Nobody wants to feel like for me, like, sex is an escape from work for me, to be honest. I'm like, this is a great escape. I'm like, I'm used to being serious and working all the time. And like, no, it's time to have fun,
So, 2 pieces of advice. 1 for your younger self, and 1 gem for, like, yourself now.
Myself now. For my younger self, I would say, don't do anything before you're fully ready and completely want to do it. I feel like early on I had certain experiences because it was a distraction for me, and it wasn't really because I wanted to explore sex. It was more of like an attention thing and a distraction. So yeah, that's what I would say to my younger self. Currently, I don't know. Currently, I feel, I don't know, keep having fun, baby. Keep having fun, baby. Like, whatever that is, if I'm in a serious relationship, I'm gonna keep having fun. Like, I just want to continue to, like, learn myself, know myself, like, give to myself and receive all the pleasure and joy that I deserve, and that includes sex.
Ashe.
How about you, boo?
To my younger self, I would say, be impolite. Make that person feel uncomfortable. Like, say no as many times over as you need to say no, and know that you can say no at any point in time. And if you feel uncomfortable ever, like, I was so worried when I was younger that I was going to hurt people's feelings, that I was just, like, so willing to, like, go with the flow, and there were so many times where I should have just trusted my gut, and I could have got out of unsafe situations. And so yeah, that's my advice to my younger self. Like, don't be shamed into being like a polite, nice girl. Be a mean girl. Be a girl that says no.
Okay, so for women who are lesbians or bisexual, or they're just exploring the idea, maybe they feel like they're not attracted to men, but they don't know where to go from there, what would you tell them?
I think I would say, like, be open to having experiences, and don't be scared of judgment. I don't think that you need to like tell anyone right away. I think that you can just be like open, and if you do have people you trust, but it's private, and be open to having experiences. If it's like your first time like having sex with a woman, I always tell my new lesbian friends this advice, and this is actually like hilarious because I got this from a movie and Jonah Hill said it. And basically he said, like, when you go down on a woman, like, you just do the alphabet. And I'm not kidding you. I've given this piece of advice to so many women that are like, I'm really scared to go down on my girlfriend. Like, it's my first time. And I'm like, just do the alphabet with your tongue. And the reason why I say this is because you do so many different motions that it's really easy for you to, like, discover, like, what motion she likes. And then you can, like, keep doing that. But, like, it's really intimidating for a lot of women to, like, go down on, like, a woman that's already been dating other women. True. It's like embarrassing because you're like, oh my gosh, like, some of these women are like, grown, and they're like, I don't know what I'm doing, and I want to like pleasure my girlfriend. So yeah, that's my advice. It works every time.
I think if any men are watching, they should also take the advice.
Also do the alphabet with your tongue.
Do the alphabet with your tongue.
So it's just good advice all around. Oh, well, cheers, babe.
Cheers.
I'm so sorry to all our family that probably watched this episode. You guys should have turned it off long time.
Yeah, you're too nosy, okay? Mind your business. Mind your business. Anyways, with peace and love.
Thanks for watching. Bye.